And maybe invocation or thought by Chairman Green and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could lead us, Commissioner.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I mean, we do have one audience public member, so thank you for being here. But in light of that, I guess just a quick thought I'd like to offer, just two things, maybe a dual thought here. But the first one is just in the spirit of thankfulness. You know, we had Thanksgiving recently. I just want to express just how much I'm loving being able to serve in this body. I know sometimes we get a lot, the public is always like, oh, like that must be really hard or awful, or I don't know how you do that. But honestly, I think it's really rewarding working with you awesome people, working with the city staff. And that's been super just rewarding to get to know them. And we have some amazing people working at the city. So I just want to share that moment of gratitude. And I'm personally very happy to be able to be on this committee and serving the city or commission. The second, just real quick thought here is I think one part of serving the commission well, though, is us continuing to educate ourselves and continuing to do the best jobs we can. So I just wanted to throw out two resources that I found really helpful in terms of being a commissioner that anyone, public included, can utilize to learn more. Strong Towns is a really great resource with a lot of like classes and training and information and article. Another one that's a little more planning commission centered, but still helpful is plannersweb.com. They have a lot of wonderful articles that again are a little more planning commission focused, but is helpful, I think, for all public to learn and educate, and especially for the commissioners if they want more information. So that is my thought for tonight.
Oh, thank you. That was great.
Planningweb.com.
Planning. The other one's called Strong Towns, and I think that's a .org. And the other one's plannersweb.com. And I can give you those later as well. And again, I don't have any relationship to these. I've just found them to be useful.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we don't have a quorum tonight, but we're not voting on anything. So Commissioner Gardner is excused. And I guess we'll see if anybody else will join us, but we won't wait. We'll go ahead and continue on. Should we skip the minutes vote?
Yep.
Yeah.
Any ex parte communications or conflict of interest to disclose? And because we do have a member of the audience here tonight, and is there anybody online?
We do have some people on there.
I'm going to go ahead and read the public comments meetings guidelines. Time is made available for anyone in the audience to address the commission concerning matters pertaining to city business. Citizens will be asked to limit their remarks or questions to 5 minutes each. Any materials that are displayed or referenced, such as pictures or written materials, are part of the record and must be left with the commission. Speakers are required to have signed in at the door and will state their name and the city they reside in before beginning their remarks. If you agree with the previous speaker, state your agreement to avoid repetitious remarks. Speakers shall address the commission from the podium or microphone and shall address all comments to the planning commission. So let's jump right into our administrative item tonight, which is quarterly training. This is the housing overlay zones and neighborhood commercial. And the presenter tonight is Scott Hess, the Community and Economic Development Director.
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Planning Commission. And I hope that you find this at least entertaining. I love this stuff. So for me, this has been really fun to put together. And I wish that we had a room full of 100 people from the public, because this is really the time that those decisions matter and for them to be thinking about them. But we'll have Mr. Kevin Burns here, and who we have online. I can't see who we have online, but excited that there are a few people. So I'm going to start. I wrote out a 30-second elevator speech on what we're going to talk about tonight, which is affordable housing overlay zones and neighborhood commercial. And this is our final quarterly Planning Commission training of the year. The state requires 4 hours of training for each Planning Commission member annually. And we're going to help you all get across the finish line with that. I do want to encourage you all that this is a conversation, not me speaking, at you, but let's have a conversation. And we'll break it into the two different pieces as we talk about it. And I realized after putting this together that these are both really meaty topics. We could have had a training on each one of them individually, but I think they go hand in hand with what we've been dealing with recently and with the council's priorities. So tonight is about making land use decisions that strengthen North Ogden's long-term stability. The housing overlay, the affordable housing overlay zone gives us a compliant, responsible way to create attainable owner-occupied homes while maintaining neighborhood character. The neighborhood commercial areas support everyday needs with small local businesses that add vibrancy and strengthen our tax base. Your role as the Planning Commission is to ensure that these tools are aligned with our general plan and the city's long-term vision, so North Ogden remains livable, resilient, and financially strong for the next generation. And I think it's really interesting for me to think about because what we're doing is housing policy as fiscal policy is the way I would think about it. And Planning Commission typically isn't charged with decisions related to the bottom line, but in a growing city, we're kind of at a tipping point where we need to really be thinking about our breakdown of property taxes, sales taxes, fees that we charge. And I think we're at a really pivotal point. So this is a time for us all to put on our economic hats and think about land use as fiscal policy. So are there any questions before I go on? Okay, perfect. So the North Ogden City Council developed about a year ago through a strategic planning session 4 pillars. And those 4 pillars were public safety, community unity, employees, and economic planning. And I've been told that those are the order of priority. But to me, I think of it more like a pyramid, right? So economic planning is the base for all of this. So obviously ours is the most important piece, is the way I see myself. It's the junior high picture, or yearbook. You only go to your picture. So economic planning is clearly the most important piece of all of this.
It's hard to have 1 and 3 without 4.
You are not, you're really not wrong. And what we did, what John did through his leadership and with the council was broke each of the department heads up into groups that represented these 4 pillars. So I was fortunate enough to work with our finance director, Peter Brown, and he and I represented the economic planning pillar. And our charge was to see, how does your work relate to the overall work of the city? And then how do you see your work in each of these other pillars, which I could make a really strong planning and economic development case across all of them. And during the November 21st day-long retreat with the council, we had council administrative staff, department heads, John was there. We all, we heard presentations from each of them. And I just wanted to insert planning into so many of them. I think that they're all critical. So this is really about thoughtful growth, ensuring North Ogden develops in a way that is economically resilient, livable, and aligned with our community priorities. And I want to talk about 2 of the 4 goals that we had. So Peter and I developed 4 goals: ensuring fiscal sustainability, investing in infrastructure and community beautification, guiding strategic land use and economic growth, and modernize and streamline development services. So those are the 4 pieces that we're really focused on for economic planning as the pillar over the next year and on as we move forward. But the 2 tonight that we'll talk about a little is our ensure fiscal sustainability and guide strategic land use and economic growth. So ensure fiscal sustainability. What does that mean for a city? I am not a public finance director, and I don't claim to be, and I know just enough about budgeting to maybe get myself into trouble. But my understanding of local municipal budgets is, I think of it in Utah as a 3-legged stool. So you have property taxes, sales taxes, and you can call them franchise taxes, you can call them service fees. There's this third piece, and then there's like 4, 5, 6, 7 that are things like state funds that come in and grants that we might be awarded and one-time funds and any number of other individual pieces. But your budget, North Ogden City's approximate $10 million budget is broken into percentages of how much sales tax do we collect, what are the property taxes that we collect, and what are our service fees. And that's water, sewer, stormwater, garbage to some extent, even though we contract that. And there are kind of guidelines for this. So the guidelines that we see our sales tax, and this is through the GFOA, and I'm gonna have to put a dollar in my own acronym jar because it's government finance. And do you know what GFOA? Do you remember, John?
Government Financial Officers Association.
Perfect. See, I'll put the dollar in the acronym jar. I try not to speak in them. So GFOA is a guidepost for local communities to use, or they provide financial information. And the goal is for sales tax, you could potentially grow your sales tax up to 30% of your city's budget. If you are more reliant on sales tax than 30%, because that's an elastic funding source, when you have boom years, you're doing really well. And when you have bust years, you are considering how do we even pay the bills, right? How do we keep the lights on and keep the people paid? So sales tax is I don't want to call it an unreliable, but it's not a stable and steady source of, it's the cryptocurrency of tax revenues that the city receives. The next is property taxes. You don't want to exceed 60%. So every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And that includes saying yes to residential development of any and all kinds all over the city, is saying no to collection of sales tax and increased property taxes. So you don't want your property taxes to be so high because you're not being bolstered and supported by sales tax that you are paying all the bills for the city and salt and snow plowing and road overlays on the backs of all of your residents. And then the third is the service fees. So you want to strike a balance between fees that are fair and representative of the cost of the services you provide, but aren't so much that they're burdensome for the people who live in the city. And these are general rules. So today, we're right on target. Where sales tax is 29%, property tax is 48%, service fees are 24%. But to me, this says we're at this tipping point, because if residential development outpaces commercial growth, then what's going to happen is your sales tax will become a smaller piece of the overall pie over time. So property taxes will need to increase in order to just pay the bills of today if residential development marches away from sales tax revenue. The flip of that is sales tax could continue to grow. You could be like the Riverdale cities of the world, where you're really high on sales tax revenue, and that allows them to keep their property taxes low. But again, you fund an entire city and staff on that larger amount of money. So ensure fiscal sustainability, and we should be thinking about these are land use policies. Land use policies will help drive our fiscal sustainability. The third goal is guiding strategic land use and economic growth. And this is really linking the two together, but the focus would be for us, what are the,
Sorry, I had one question.
oh yeah, please.
From
go
the
ahead.
last slide.
Yeah.
The asterisks, are those percentages from our general plan or general?
No, the asterisks are the GFOA recommended budget percentages, but thank you.
Okay,
So it's the top one, sales tax in bold, 29% is our current budget, and the grow to number is the guidance number from the GFOA.
okay, thank you.
And then in this one, we did the whole strategy meeting and on what are our trackable measures. So for me, thinking about this for Planning Commission, our trackable measure would be the acres that have been entitled for priority land uses. And that would be commercial, and we'll talk about neighborhood commercial, housing, and open space. And then we also talked about businesses retained and development projects advanced as a way to track more proactive economic development. The left is a general plan that we had written a bunch of notes on back in 2022. And I'm going to have Ryan, will you help me Vanna White this over here? And John, I don't know if it matters for the people who are online, if you want to change the camera angle, but I love this. So I'm going to ask the Planning Commission some questions.
Oh.
You've seen this once before, okay, so. At the day-long meeting. Thank you, Kevin. Sorry to block you. Okay, this is the general plan from 1961. And it's one of my favorite maps that existed in my office and I got to unroll. And just the fact that someone sat down and hand drew this one is pretty incredible. But this is the how well do you know your city general plan drawing, okay? So right here, this is us. This is City Hall, which makes this north-south road. Just call it out.
Washington Boulevard.
Perfect. And this is,
26.
2600.
all right, which makes this first line. You know that, you know the answers. Nope,
Oh, it's-
lower.
Oh,
Then
it's
Long-
lower? Oh,
One more. What's right
Mm.
by these?
the mountain,
What's north of these?
Thought it was.
Pleasant View Drive.
Pleasant View, Pleasant
So
View.
Pleasant View and then Lomond View and
Elbert,
Alberta.
There's, yeah, yeah.
This is
3100.
3100 with skyline right here, which makes this, it's kind of unfair because the road doesn't exist. It's approximately 3550 north, which goes this direction over to 1050. But, and then this that people thought was a train track
Mountain
is
View,
Mountain Road.
Mountain Road, I mean. Why does it,
Or
it
is
looks
it
like a
the-
railroad track. I was
I-
wondering.
Is it actually the power lines? Or-
It's a future road.
Oh, it's a future, it's a parkway. So they drew it cutesy to be a parkway, which
Close
in
is that to our
60,
current
yeah.
Mountain Road?
like
Extremely.
almost right
I
on.
was gonna say, it looks.
It's extremely
This
close.
one up.
In fact, the two, well, in the presentation, if you hold that up to
very
this side by
good.
side, they're almost exactly. So red is
Good job.
commercial. This is the interesting thing to me. And then this.
Wait, that was commercial back in
61.
you're kidding.
Nope. So here's,
Well-
this is Monroe
Mm-hmm.
and this is 1050. So Bates Elementary should have been in my, I'm not gonna just choose, but it should have been a Maverick. It should have been literally Adventure's first stop before you drove over the North Ogden Divide Road.
Yeah.
The city missed, in my, in my opinion, it's really easy to look back and
Right.
complain about the people before you, which you get to do. But we missed an opportunity to do commercial on 3100 and any of our north-south roads, right? And it makes me think about, as the shepherd of the city, of the planning department during the short window when I get to do it, what are the decisions that we leave behind that the future legacy will say, you did a bad job or you did a good job? So thinking about neighborhood commercial today
Fascinating.
knows, we should have been thinking about it. We went a different path and that's all fine and super interesting, but you have 1700 in Monroe commercial, Southtown Center, Downtown Center, something over, this is 1050 and 2600. So Barker Park should be a shopping center. And then something up here, which in our view, I think this ends up a little higher,
Higher,
up Mountain View.
By mountain.
So thank you. That's
Really like mind blowing to me because if you had us predict before you rolled that out, I would have predicted that they had only put commercial along Washington as a future vision plan. So that is like mind blowing to me.
Well,
Especially, So
it is
John-
fascinating because it's the very thing that we've kind of been talking about, right?
Yeah. And that nothing new or everything new is old, like everything comes back. It's, what did Dylan say in a meeting say? It's like bell bottoms. They just curve back around, right? We need Dylan Hill here.
But to be clear, so the only thing that has been accomplished with like, if we look at that vision is the game plan is essentially the Washington Boulevard.
From a
Location.
commercial standpoint, but the amazing thing to think about when looking at that map is every dotted line is a road that didn't exist.
Mm,
Yeah.
So they built, we have almost the road network that 60 plus years ago, they envisioned for the city, and before that 1961 plan. So the road network is a huge deal for that. They don't have 2700 north going out to the freeway. At this time, the freeway would have been brand new and or under construction. So really interesting use to be way far west. But a bunch of this came to pass between the parks and the school locations.
I was gonna say, what are the little
It's-
green circles?
They're like civic spaces, so parks and or
Okay,
schools.
okay.
And I think they may have indicated churches too, which we don't typically do now on
Right.
long range plans. But I think it's very interesting, right? Something,
is
it's
fascinating.
It is.
food for thought on what we're looking at today. So with that, let's start with affordable housing overlay zones. And since there aren't 150 really excited people in the room, we can have a conversation back and forth about this. To begin with, what is an affordable housing overlay zone? So Utah State Code, the LUDMA, Land Use Development Management Act, Title 10, which covers cities. Title 17 is the mirror of it that covers counties, but 109A 403 requires cities to do a moderate income housing element of their general plan. And we've been compliant with that for 10 years. It's been around a long time, the requirement to do one. In 2021, 22, the state code changed and required cities to adopt strategies off of a menu of items that they had created, the legislature had created for us. So the three that we were able to choose, or that we chose out of 23 options, were rezone for densities necessary to facilitate the production of moderate income housing, create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units, and amend land use regulations to allow for higher density or new moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed use zones near major transit investment corridors. And we've been able to show.
Sorry.
You're good.
It's good. I won't be able to see your slides.
Yeah.
I can't see it from here, but I can on my phone, so I gotta turn the
You're
volume
good.
down.
You're good.
No.
You're good.
That screen right there should show it as well.
Yep, it's right there.
Yep, it's right there. So we've gone with these three, and we've been able to defensively every year write our report to the state that turn that down one more time. Sorry, it's echoing.
turned it off
You're good.
now.
That we are meeting these goals. But the thing is that it's a pretty major lift every year to track all of these individual elements, do the reporting back. And here's the big kicker, is that the state a few years ago decided that moderate income housing was a big enough deal that instead of it just being hanging out there as a general plan item, they put teeth to it. It's a carrot and a stick, and you can decide which one it is. But if you are not compliant with this section of your general plan, you stand to lose what the state allocates, what are called B and C road funds. And in our city, those are funds that pay for staff time, sidewalks, curb and gutter, streets, street overlays, simple infrastructure around streets, and it totals almost $1 million a year. It's almost our entire kind of programmable local street budget that comes to us from the state. And further, you have a $250 per day fee that you have to, I can't think of the word.
Penalty?
Yes, thank you. Penalty that you have to pay to the Olene Walker Housing Fund. So that totals another slightly over $91,000. So for us, it's over $1 million, would be $1 million net loss to our budget if we weren't compliant. So this thing has stressed me out for 3 years. And I sit and put it together, and I beg John to, give me grace if they have issues with it. And we've been accepted. So we're really happy about that.
Who proves that? You submit it. Who-
Division, not HUD, the Division of Workforce Services, the Housing Division. So yep,
Workforce Services.
yep. So they have in the state code, it says who says this is compliant, and they review it on a number of things. And it's not all 250 plus cities in the state of Utah who have to do it. It's about 80 cities. It's, with populations that exceed a certain number. And then in areas that have in areas that are more urban. But what the state had created, and they passed this year in the legislative session, it was signed into law in March, is there are in addition to the 23 items now, there are 4 or 5 new items that give you an automatic green light. Your moderate income house plan has passed. And we'd like to explore one of those at the Planning Commission. And it's item BB, affordable home ownership density bonuses for single family residential units. So if we put this code in, and I'll go to the next slide and we'll talk about exactly what it is. But if we do this, we will pass our moderate income housing plan, and we won't have to report on it for however many years the state legislature allows it to stay that way until they change or update the rules. So
You're gonna
question-
get into this more,
Yep.
right? But I think the dilemma in my mind that we've had with this affordable housing is some of the density projects we've had, in my mind, don't actually equal lower cost housing. Does that make sense? And
It
that's,
does. Yep. So
Okay,
that will be a requirement. Yep. So in this bill, what affordable homeownership density bonuses are, on the the right side, it would be areas with an underlying zoning density of less than 6 residential units per acre. And I should ask you, does anyone know the significance of the number 43,560? You can't answer, and Ryan can, right? Oh, Ryan knows. What is it, Ryan? Do you
That's
know?
an acre in square feet.
It's the square footage of an acre, and it's the one number, and planners live and die by it. We sit and think about it all day long. So 43,560 divided by 6, that's 7,200 square foot lots. So that's not,
Not much
Yeah,
smaller.
that's
than-
not that small, right? But if you permit an affordable home ownership density bonus, if you write it into your zoning code, it says that anywhere in the city, regardless of zone, RA 20, which is 20,000 square foot lots, R 12 and a half, 12,500 square foot, 10,000 square foot lots, any of those areas currently zoned today could administratively put together a zone or a subdivision that is 7,200 square foot lots. That's 6 units per acre. So it automatically entitles essentially the entire city in the single family areas up to 6 units per acre. But what we found is that but for 1 or 2 projects in the last 4 years that have come forward, and most of them have been long-term planned hillside projects, we're seeing requests for density that exceed 6 units per acre. So I think the risk to the city would be relatively low or a modest density increase over, say, R18, which has kind of been the base level density that most residential zones have asked for, like the largest that most have asked for, short of a few R110s. The requirements, should a developer choose to use this method, right? They choose to go down this entitlement path, they have to have on the left side, at least 60% of all of the residential units within the project shall be deed restricted for owner occupancy for 5 years. The affordable housing requirement is a minimum of 25% of the single family units shall qualify as affordable housing. And that has a value that had to hit. And okay. So what affordable housing would mean is that it's offered for sale to an owner occupier at a purchase price affordable to a household with a gross income of no more than 120% of area median income for the county, or offered for rent at an income level of 80% of area median income. So if you're in North Ogden, well, Weber County's area median income is about $80,000. So that'd be someone who makes $96,000. And then you back out the numbers for what does a family making $96,000, what home can they afford? And this is a function of interest rate and down payment and house value. There's a bunch of pieces to it, right? But that's where you start to back out what the number ultimately means. And so that's why they use area median income and not you have to sell houses for $380,000, right? Because it will vary depending on county and city. Summit County is far different than Weber County, and Box Elder County is far different than Weber County. So at any rate, there's 25% of them shall qualify as affordable housing as defined by the state. There's a small unit requirement that 25% of the single family residential units per acre are a maximum of 1,600 square feet. And then a preferential buyer program, which is an optional alternative that allows people to, or developers to offer those units exclusively for the first 30 days to categories of preferred qualifying buyers approved by the city. And these you'd think of as teachers, first responders, police department, civil employees.
In California.
Exactly. Yep. These would be the people that you want to live in your city because they're providing essential services within your city, and you hopefully can provide some housing for them. So with this, this is a really kind of complicated, convoluted map that came from 2022, but it's the difficulty in identifying in the general plan what land use zones should go where. So the left side is our future land use map, and John has lovingly titled the yellow spot as the big yellow blob because it really is. And the issue with the medium yellow area, the light colored yellow is the hillside. That one, we pretty well know what we're going to get. We're going to get larger estate lots that likely will never be affordable, right? I mean, just inherently by land value, that's sort of a different area of the city. The yellow area is called residential low density, but that area is comprised of R15, R18, R110, R112, RE20, and it even includes some two-family dwellings and some smaller apartment projects as well. So it's a little bit of everything, and that's why it makes it really difficult when someone comes in and asks for a rezone to answer the question, is this compliant with the general plan? And it's because the general plan is so loose, right? Like it permits everything everywhere almost. But if you look at the residential low density, aside from the couple of R15 projects, R18 is thought of as a pretty like base level single family zone. And if you know Ward Farms, that's the new subdivision south of 17, well, relatively new subdivision south of 1700. Oh no, that's Woodfield Farms. So Woodfield Farms is 600 to 650 east and south of 1700 north. So they were built by Rainey Homes. And then Ward Farms, which we just saw, which is Fruitland and about 22 or so, like 1975 north, that's an R18 subdivision. So you can envision, like, if you were to call out a builder, it's like an Ivory Homes type of subdivision, right? That is permitted in the residential low density. And if you carve off another 700 square feet or so, 800 square feet off of each of those lots, that would be an area that would qualify for this affordable housing overlay zone by zoning density.
So close, you're saying.
It's really close. It's, you know, it's 8 feet on a 100-foot deep lot. It's 8 feet of width on a 100-foot depth. And so I think for most people, it would be not perceptible depending on the setbacks and where the building is sitting. So it's I would call it, and of course I get to say this because I'm staff working for the city and I don't live here, but it's a modest increase in density. It's not like a
Yeah.
huge sea change for the city to go from 1 acre to down to 5,000 square foot lots, right?
You know, I think also for the surrounding neighborhood, it doesn't seem like such an oddity to think about a single, a residential, single-family home neighborhood like that might have 25% of smaller houses in it. You know, the lots may be a little bit smaller, but it would still seem to have that same character and look and feel of a single-family neighborhood
Right.
next door to them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the general plan density definitions, and I pulled this out of our general plan, is in the low density residential, which is that large yellow area, are typical single family development with homes built on lots 8,000 square feet and larger, densities in the range of 1 to 6 units per acre. So our general plan by text language is already compliant in the general plan designation. The zoning code is a little different, like we can't entitle everywhere at 6 units an acre, but the language has been there since 2015.
So it qualifies for that BB
It,
element.
well, it
So-
qualifies as a reason to justify adding this
It
affordable
does
housing.
because it
overlay.
still has 8,000.
Right.
It's gotta be 7,200, okay.
And then the medium density residential that's called out is interesting. It's a range of 6 to 18 units per acre. And then high density residential, which you can think of most of the multifamily along Washington Boulevard, is called out as 18 to 40 units per acre. But the maximum dwelling units per acre that you can build right now in North Ogden by code is 15 units per acre. So short of having a development agreement or a clustered zone, you cannot build more than 15 units per acre in North Ogden. So all of your entitled townhome projects you've seen, your walk-up apartment, 3-story walk-up apartments, Village at Prominence Point, if you were to isolate individual sections of it, exceed 15 units per acre, but on the whole of the project, the net dwelling units per acre is 15. So again, our general plan is far exceeding it's saying we could and or should allow more dwelling units per acre than our entitled zoning permits, which is fine. General plans aren't an obligation to follow, but it's just interesting that this has been sitting out there for 10 years now. And we either haven't changed policies to accept it, or we kind of pluck sections out of the general plan that meet our requirements or that kind of help us tell our narrative, right? But the information is out there. So if you were to add this overlay zone in areas that already exceed 6 dwelling units per acre, so you're at R15, 5,000 square foot lots, you get to add a half a unit per acre with the density bonus. So you have this like minor bump, a half a unit per every acre. So on a 2 acre project where you'd normally get 10 homes, you'd end up with 12 on an R15 project. So again, it's not a sea change. It's not doubling the density. It's pretty minor improvement. So with that, that's the first part of our training on the affordable housing overlay zones. So I'd ask you if you have any questions, for staff, it's compelling in a few ways. One is that it gives the market tools to come back and provide affordable housing to us through these minor density increases. And then the other thing is just the reduction of clearing the bar for getting our moderate income housing plan done. Just that alone would save so much staff time and headache.
Put $1 million at risk.
And it wouldn't, exactly. It would make sure that we are assured that we have that $1 million and not up to my interpretation of how well we've done and then the state accepting my written plan, basically.
I think the best thing in my mind about it is that, project by project, I always wonder, well, this is a higher density project. What is it really creating any more affordable housing? Because I think that's a big gamble, but this actually almost builds in not only a certain percentage of definitely affordable housing, but it also scatters it through the residential neighborhoods and doesn't just, force it to this section of Washington Boulevard or,
Right.
Whatever it is. So I think that part of it is cool, that it actually does ensure that there would be meeting the goal of some kind of affordable housing options. I just wonder who enforces that? How do you track it or enforce
us.
like who these houses are sold to, offered to,
Right.
built for? I mean,
You can
how
track
do you do
the-
that?
The very first part, the deed restricted units is easy. That's recorded against the unit. And a lot of them are maintained by homeowners associations that maintain that ownership over time, as opposed to turning everything over into rentals. On who purchases them and what the sales price are, I'm honestly not sure.
All we could do is like look at it and say, well, here's the square footage of
Yeah, look at the
25% of the
MLS and
houses.
exactly.
Interesting.
So I've got this map up here and I put one in front of you on the desk, and I would ask you, and this is a question the council has asked me and John and I to consider, is where in the city where would you prioritize areas of smaller lot, single family? And I would love for you to grab whichever color you want to. Let's start with green first, because red is historically commercial, right? As opposed, as part of my 60-year-old general plan. So grab the green marker and we can talk about it, and or you can
I think
draw
we
in
need
some maps.
blue.
Ah,
The blue
man,
one, right?
blue,
We
dang.
got blue and red.
I got green ones in the box. But you could do blue. So are there any areas, and maybe we spend, 90 seconds or 2 minutes or something and just draw a few areas that you think about. And I'd love to collect those and we can report back to the planning commission. These are areas where 3 of the 7 of you considered where we should put it. And I'll send this out in an email
Sorry,
too.
and can you clarify what we're
You're-
circling for blue?
You're looking for areas where you would, as a planning commission member, as a resident of North Ogden, support smaller lot, single family housing. So these would be areas that we might designate in the general plan as automatic administrative decisions on an overlay zone, or where we rezone to smaller lot, single family. But just give ourselves a little bit of control over this instead of just asking the market to respond. But I'm interested in your thoughts about, as you look at the city and you drive around, where would you?
Really, we would have some control as to what zones we put it in. Because I think I was understanding it as if we elected that option, it's citywide, but
Yeah,
that's
so
not the case.
anywhere in the city could be 6 units an acre, but anything smaller than 6 units an acre today, so that's R1, R2, R3, R4, R15, Quail Ponds, Century Farm Zone, could get that half a dwelling
I
unit per
see.
acre up.
Okay, and that's more what we're focusing on with the blue marker.
But the other question is, if we don't do this, we could just look at our general plan a little bit more closely and pre-zone or think better about what medium density high density, medium density, and low density actually looks like. So I'm just interested in your perspective. And from staff, we live at this view of the map, like we look at this all day long
Mhm.
through zoning map and our GIS maps and everything else. So when we look around, there's certain areas that we think if it's not here, then where?
Yeah.
And one of those was the annexation area. So for staff, it made a lot of sense to see an infill of smaller single-family homes in that particular project. And I understand the citizens' concerns coming out, and I'm glad that they were part of the process. But this question becomes, if not here, then where?
Mhm.
And so I'd love for you to think about that for a minute. And you can even draw on these and then bring them back to us or snap a picture of it and email it to me. But I'm interested in your thoughts on where small lot, single family would go.
So I'm looking where would Monroe Boulevard slink down here?
Goes right by that Weber County giant square up to 2600.
Here.
Right here.
Sorry, where
Does it come down right here?
So it comes
Yeah,
His,
here.
his side is,
I can do it here.
it's not his twisted sideways. He's got his,
goes right through.
so he's
It
got
goes
some-
all the way up.
Your map is sideways, so it's.
Oh, I see. I'm like.
Yeah, it's, it's sideways.
Okay, so it goes down. So is it here?
So right here, these are the properties from last time. See that LDS church? It comes right up through here to connect to 2600, right
So
down
just draw this
this.
straight down.
Correct. It's fairly straight, isn't it, when it comes down? Right?
Yeah, it basically
Yeah.
starts, it comes and,
Right, yeah.
yeah.
And then south of this diagram or this map is county property, or these are farm
Ogden
fields or
City.
Ogden City?
Yeah, because I was thinking the same. I've outlined
Harrisville
my
on the
major
left
roads.
and on the right.
That was one of the first things I did too, was think where are the major roadways and outline those, because to me that seems to make
That's the kind of the future of where I
logical,
would be.
correct. And I mean, our reliance on vehicles isn't great, but I don't see that changing anytime soon, so.
Well, and one thing, and while you're drawing, just that, again, that map that Scott showed earlier. So the planning commission at that time set that general plan map, and lo and behold, the roads, most of them ended up where they predicted they would be.
That's
And
amazing.
so you should assume that what you're putting on a map is going to guide the future, which is why Scott's saying where's a good spot for these single family units on, call it 7,000 square foot lots.
Right,
I mean,
right.
it's a good question, because
The other thing that
I
gets
can,
in my brain.
1700, somewhere
the
down.
thing that-
1700
the other
is this
thing
road.
Brain is this water problem thing that keeps
and then this one's 2,100.
that. I guess we fixed
Stormwater,
that.
26.
stormwater problem
Yeah,
specifically,
yeah.
yeah.
31 is this one.
And
But I guess we make him fix it if.
right, and maybe this is just the municipal side of me that's done this for years, is that nothing that gets built is illegal. Like every decision every subdivision that's out there, they were legal. The zoning was legal, the
Yeah.
detention basins. So development in a lot of cases fixes problems, because if you have an unincorporated piece of property that's a donut hole in your city, they can ignore it. Like they can ignore the stormwater problems on that site because it's not affecting them. It's not really affecting neighbors. It's just a wet piece of property or a hillside piece of property. But development comes in and they have to comply. We have a city engineer and a public works director and a streets inspector and culinary, sewer and stormwater superintendents. Planning makes sure all of the zoning is accepted. Planning commission literally accepts the streets. That's you as the land use authority. So nothing that happens, nothing illegal gets built, right? And it has to solve its own problems.
Yes.
And we need to be able to decouple the issues of providing a zone to a piece of ground and then their ability to physically build the project, right? Because you can engineer anything with enough money, but there are projects that get zoned and then the developer realizes that the costs far
Yeah,
exceed the
Right.
Yeah.
ability to sell this piece,
Feasible.
and they'll back out of a project, right? And that comes in many flavors. Like
And that decoupling is a perfect analogy too for the school issue, which is the kind of the point I was trying to make. And I know residents are concerned about that, but it's the exact same concept. The building, the planning, like the school thing comes secondary and that will get solved.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a great way of saying it, that you have to uncouple those things.
So as we have the zoning now, it's always interesting for me to see like, there's this, like this is a head and there's a brain of R110 that relates to the elevation change. It just becomes more expensive.
Yep, you can
So
all,
there's no way we're going to do more affordable on the R110.
And so let me say that a different way. If there was an overlay zone, it is highly unlikely that they would apply it in that area on pieces that aren't developed, because I think to what Scott was saying is there are some engineering problems when you get to a certain slope that a 7,000 square foot lot just cannot work.
And you can see that in this.
Yeah. In fact, the HPT2 zone that's up there at the top, that's technically 15,000 square foot lots. And the average lot size up there is about 20,000 square feet, because the elevation forces you to have a bigger lot to be able to build the house. So
More affordable is not going to be in this yellow zone.
not as likely. So again, if we did a citywide overlay,
Yeah.
then these areas would be less likely to be
Oh, because of
impacted.
The economics of it.
Yep.
But politically, it's not a bad thing to do this because of the BB thing.
Yeah.
And the economics will limit that
Yeah.
by default. Okay.
But you may find a spot like in this HP1 zone in the top left where someone might be able to do that, and they might turn it into like as opposed to a real heavy focus on affordability, it might be a focus on senior affordability.
That's one thing I was thinking too, is sometimes there are projects though that make sense that might be, like you said, senior
Yep.
affordability or just varying housing types that individuals might want.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point that could make sense in some of those areas.
I've been a long advocate for some sort of they call them a flat top condo, for seniors.
Yeah.
Because we have people who live on the hill who would like to stay on the hill, but they can't keep a half acre lot up.
Right. And stairs aren't friends either. and
Stairs aren't,
everything. Yeah. I think that's such a good point.
Mm.
Because that's going to be me someday. Like, I think that that's a realistic thing though for residents, and you don't want to leave North Ogden to find it. And so, yeah, I think that's a great point.
So you say a senior living could be a more affordable housing option in HP1?
Or
Well, because it's a smaller lot, smaller home than what you might get if it was a half acre lot with a 4,000 square foot house on it.
So is that good or bad? I don't know.
depends on your,
It-
depends on your perspective.
That's why you get the big bucks, is to make these decisions.
I mean, the reality is unless you designate this overlay,
Yeah.
the owner of that property working with the developer, they're gonna try to get as much bang for the
Oh.
buck. So a bunch of little affordable housing is probably not their first choice, right?
And elevation's the economics of it's gonna undermine it anyway.
and it's interesting, the fiscal policy part or land uses fiscal policy is another aspect is it might not be about affordable housing. It might be about housing choice and keeping neighborhoods whole. Because if you live right now in, we have several multi-million-dollar homes on the hill in North Ogden on a large lot and a large home, but you want to keep your neighbors and the church that you go to and your commute to the grocery store and all the things that you like about your neighborhood, you likely can't downsize in that neighborhood and stay in it, right? Like
Exactly.
the decision is I move completely out of my neighborhood and maybe even out of North Ogden if I want to get the housing type that I'm looking for. So some of these decisions are about providing housing throughout the city that allows people to move around, like full life cycle housing that they can live in.
Yeah.
And because there are people who will choose to give up their large lot, single family home for a townhome, or, like John saying, a really nice high-end apartment complex or townhome because they don't have any maintenance on anything. They've got, they can go out and play and ski and don't worry
Overlay
about their
allows
weekends.
that.
Well, just a variety of how this is kind of
Talked about this
Yeah.
before.
thinking larger than just the overlay would be a variety of zoning types and housing types all over the city. kind of thinking about it in terms of life cycles of neighborhoods. The housing overlay is a really good tool if we want to hopefully attain some affordable housing. But we'll just have to see if the market, comes back and asks for that use. And I'm not sure, but right now, it would be asked for by a rezone or something else, and we wouldn't have the same teeth to say, yes, but these are the standards you're going to follow. Where if we adopt the zoning code, they can come and ask for it and we'll say, you won't have to go through a long, laborious legislative process. It's an automatic yes, but here are the things you need to do. And those are to provide some affordable units in the city. And I don't know if that's enough of an incentive, especially in an area like North Ogden where land is so valuable. But to staff, I think it's worthwhile. It's worth the try, right? So I'm going to let you mull that over and keep the markers, but you'll change them to red because let's talk for a minute about neighborhood commercial, and mostly because I promised John I wouldn't go too long, and this stuff's really easy for me to go really long on. So I'm going to continue. So neighborhood commercial. We've talked a little bit about this, and we have our 1960 general plan that I just love over here to reference. But the thing that is really interesting is I inherited, when I got here in 2021, the middle of the process of updating our land use code, our Title 11 code. And in that, there was an identification written on neighborhood commercial. We have this on the books. Everything on this page right now is currently in Title 11-10A-1B, commercial zones. And the purpose and intent is for neighborhood commercial to provide for the sale and supply of daily living needs for the people in neighborhoods. And the current uses that are permitted in neighborhood commercial in our code are retail shops and services under 10,000 square feet, animal clinics or pet hospitals, no outdoor pens, restaurants but not fast food, professional offices, coffee shops or small eateries but no drive-throughs, private instructional studios, artists, photography, dance, music, drama, health, tattoo artist studios, and bed and breakfasts. So these are the permitted list. If we were to create tomorrow, through your recommendation and planning and city council adoption, an NC or a CN zone and drop it on the map somewhere, someone could go and apply for a business license for one of these uses tomorrow. So we already have the code is written. The thing that we lack now is where on the map does this fall, essentially? And I created these slides back in 2021 and 22 when I tried really hard during that 22 general land use or general plan land use update to get identified areas of neighborhood commercial on the general plan map. And at that time, there was not support for it. But these are some small neighborhood commercial areas that you might recognize. So the first is Cafe Mercantile. This is Ogden on 26th Street. On the drawing to the right or the picture to the right, that's Harrison Boulevard, just east of it. So it's just a few houses up. It's been there forever. It's been 100 different uses over 100 years, and that is quintessential neighborhood commercial that just back before we had zoning, someone built that and started operating out of the front of their house. The next, this is near my house, but it's on Angel Street and Weaver Lane in Kaysville. It's just south of Layton Parkway, and there's a veterinary clinic that's embedded in the neighborhood. And so you see horses and animals show up in this little pen, and then they're taken care of, and then they're taken off. So for all intents and purposes, as you pass by it, it looks just like another small stable or animal keeping area that is common on the west side of Davis County in the area of Kaysville. This is 15th and 15th in Salt Lake City. 9th and 9th is a little more intense version of this if you're familiar with 9th South and 9th East. 15th and 15th has a cute little bookstore. It's got little restaurants, a small like walkable downtown kind of neighborhood street. There, if you were to permit this today, those uses essentially don't have parking. Like it would be almost zero. So it's on-street parking, but a lot of people just walk to it. So this really does serve the local neighborhood. And then the last one, and this is my favorite example of neighborhood commercial, is the trout farm. Yeah. And I think that we should propose, what would it be? I don't even know what you'd have to choose, like a huge riding arena. I mean, what would draw the number of people that the trout farm draw, and just recommend that we drop it in the middle of North Ogden right now today? Because this, if you were to attempt to permit this in 2025, it'd be a full no-go, right? But if you were to take it away right now, it would be a huge loss to the community. And this, we can't really take credit for it. It exists in the unincorporated county,
Yeah.
but it is in the heart of North Ogden. And it's something that we think about, and it's technically in some ways neighborhood commercial. It's just a different type
It is.
of commercial to identify. So with that, I'd ask you again, pull up your markers, or let's talk about what areas of the city do you as the planning commission feel like lend itself to neighborhood level commercial is one discussion. And then the other might be that list of uses. But until we locate it on a map, I'm less concerned about the list of uses and more about, do we have support between the planning commission and the city council to even begin to identify areas of the city that are neighborhood commercial? And we talked about the three-legged stool of how cities stay funded. One thing that to think about is that it isn't all sales tax. If you're a homeowner and you get your property tax notice, you're paying 55 cents on the dollar for the property tax. You get a state, reduction essentially. We're all subsidized so that we can afford to live in our houses. But commercial properties, including large apartments, commercial townhomes that are all owned and rented out, and then every type of commercial is assessed property taxes at 100% of the valuation. So even small commercial areas that are zoned commercial with a little commercial building on them, whether that's a title office, a dental office, another professional office, a small cafe, that building on that piece of ground is assessed full price of their property taxes. And typically commercial investments are worth more than the surrounding residential investments. So you're getting 2 or 3 or 4 times the money per acre than you would on a similarly oriented single family zone. And again, we shouldn't be thinking specifically of identifying land uses only to keep the city's budget solvent, but we shouldn't not think about it at the same time. Like it shouldn't be a driver of a decision, but it's certainly one of the multiple pillars of decision
Wouldn't
making.
we look at Monroe Boulevard? Wouldn't that be the easiest look for commercial?
Staff feels like Monroe Boulevard would be an ideal candidate for
Yeah.
future neighborhood commercial.
And when we say neighborhood commercial, understand that term hasn't been defined, but it's talking about these things that Scott was showing, like
Yeah.
the mercantile, these
Fit with
buildings
Embedded,
that embed in the community.
but they're
Lots of
function
consideration.
economically feasible.
Now,
One came up a couple of month ago or whatever in that one development proposal. I
Mhm.
wasn't opposed to the commercial, but I didn't think it met, the size of it did not meet the spirit of what we had talked about of supporting future traffic on Washington Boulevard. A dentist office there, who cares? You know what I mean? It's like, but that would be right. We needed a
Yeah.
bigger portion,
But parameters.
maybe not to be built out now, but for the future. But, you'd mentioned that further south on the potential or in the future Monroe Boulevard, there is actually I don't know if it's unincorporated, if it's RE20, but we're actually city-owned property down there. But where is that? Because that might be, something a little bigger
in that
Yeah.
overall.
that can,
Yep.
I
So,
guess, have an overlay for
But
future.
but to
Monroe
to
Boulevard.
orient
the
you,
smaller size does make it more neighborhood friendly, though. I would kind of
I
want
don't
to.
remember.
Remember that word that we
Yeah,
used?
Designated, I guess, or just,
so the area identified in Wasatch Front Regional Council's map that was staff drawn essentially is this parcel here. So you've got 2600 north coming east, hits Mountain Road, and then right here is the new 2750 north trailhead, that really nice
Yeah.
trailhead
Right.
improvement.
That's nice.
The city owns
Specific.
all of these parcels right here. So we-
So this would be like somewhere around where the equestrian.
Where
it is, yep.
in the, yeah.
It would be just south of the equestrian park and the equestrian park. The green waste pit is deed restricted when the city received it to remain open space forever. So at some point, it will transition out of being
Yeah.
a green waste pit and into some sort of permanent open space. But these other parcels, so the equestrian park, the piece where the disc golf course is right now, those are owned by the city, and that's 7 acres and 5.88. We're sitting right about 12 or 13 acres of ground that the city owns. We could determine, the city council could determine its surplus, and we could develop it or we could sell it, partner with a developer.
My daughter lives in Farmington and Farmington's built that big equestrian
Mhm.
arena.
Yep.
That kind of shocked me that
Figure this out. Where the-
that there would be enough market there.
So that's the county fairgrounds site.
Is that
So,
what that is?
so Davis County owns that, and it's, having worked there 17 years ago, it was interesting because some of those plans were in place at that time, and it took 20 years of
For that.
developing funding for them to improve
Or
that site.
equestrian park. So is there some kind of a model to help us economically with that equestrian park that we have?
We could use impact fee revenue, which is on a new home right now, a little over $4,000 per door is what we collect every new home build. And that shows up into a fund, and then we can allocate those park dollars in a number of ways. One priority right now is Barker Park, but
Yeah.
those are decisions that are made at a budgetary level, so that could move. So if the equestrian park were something the city wanted to grow or improve, that's one way we could do it, or collect grants and other one-time funds to do it. Or I don't know what the use of the equestrian park is or will be over time as the city continues to kind of phase out some of its agriculture,
Yeah.
and whether that use changes or pivots over time.
Yeah.
But that's one area the city owns. If
Can I
you,
do a process check real fast too? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we went through that Weber Regional Council report, and it had these projected commercial sites
Mhm.
already identified. Why wouldn't we just go to that, to those designated spots rather than drawing them again?
well, because you think about it in layers, right? So Wasatch Front Regional Council's map covers 5 counties. So it's like 100,000 foot view.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you come down and you have a county map that's like 50,000, and then we're like at 20,000, and then zoning is down like really on the ground. So where we're at right here with the WFRC Wasatch Choice Vision and the current vision map that will likely be adopted in 2027, they're in the middle of their process. Shows there's one area that we had drawn. Here's another area up near Mountain Road.
I'm trying to
And-
figure out where that is on here.
So right here, this is
Up and scroll.
2600 north.
It's like the greenish chunk on your map.
So this yellow one right here is Barker Farms, and that
I
is
was gonna say, that's like
right
the
off of
top.
Monroe.
Yeah.
This one is the equestrian park,
That
the
one.
green waste pit. This is Mountain Road and the property the city owns. And then if you follow this green line Mountain Road around, this is the top of 400 East or Lakeview Drive and Mountain Road.
Let's go down to Monroe Boulevard.
So Monroe crosses right
Look,
here
let's
through the
look.
center of the city. So you're looking at it right there coming.
Well, that
through.
was on Monroe then.
Yep. So this is 1700 in Monroe. So North Ogden stops right here.
Uh-huh.
So one area that staff had identified was approximately 1700 in Monroe.
Yeah.
This is the 2100 North in Monroe piece right there. The LDS Church would be just on the east side of this line.
So
Um,
that project that came in front of us is fairly aligned with that, but
It was just too small.
I don't feel that way. I think it was a great starting point, and I think
you did.
small is good for neighborhoods because we don't want a massive complex in the middle. So I personally had a dissenting point of view on that. But I don't know, yeah, if the commission it's just sometimes when we talk about vision, we say one thing, and then when a plan comes forward, we
Right.
say
Didn't
another.
make sense there.
Well,
Well, and I felt like it did, and I guess I wasn't quite sure why everyone else felt like
Well,
it didn't.
I kind of was catching what you think big, start small and scale up, right?
Right,
And that's
and
what you're saying.
correct, and a baby step towards it is a good call, but if you look at the intersection of the streets, I mean, that's a massive corridor 20 years from now.
Right.
And that's where it's like, why wouldn't we put commercial there?
I wasn't
know?
opposed to the commercial. I just think that high density, the rest of the project.
True, and I will say the commercial discussion was very minimal because it got
Yeah.
buried by the
Yeah.
residential fillings, which I understand, and then the idea of the zoning.
Like, thought on that, but,
Yeah.
and I was viewing you as thinking big, start small and scale
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
exactly. And I don't know, I mean, I think in some ways it's less threatening filling if it's not a ton of acreage, and we could have asked the developer of how they felt about extending that zone.
What was a strategy that I recall where a planning commission can look at an area and I want to say designate, there was some word, invest? What was the word that you would designate? Maybe it was just
You're
designate.
talking about vesting the general
Vesting.
plan, yeah.
That's what it was.
So this is our zoning map, which has all of our zones on it, right? It's very colorful. The general plan map is just a few future land use designations, and that is made up of several zones. A vested general plan would look a lot closer to this, where you would go in and you would pick almost parcel by parcel what the future land use of that parcel would be and adopt that and say, if you want to change the use of this from the general plan designation, you need to make a really compelling argument for why you would do that. And had we vested the 1960 general plan, Bates Elementary would be a commercial
Yeah.
center, right?
Yeah.
So vesting can be good and it can be bad. Like you could really set yourself in stone in some decisions that maybe long-term weren't the right thing. But on the other side, you might be able to make some very difficult decisions once and then stick them in there and just let them
Is that
exist.
the last stage of this discussion we're talking about?
It's,
Once we've identified, then we vest that.
Yeah.
And designate. That's
I
the
would-
last step.
it would be if we went vesting's like the nuclear option. That's like the most we could invest in the general plan. But I would say the next step from here is draw on the maps, get some ideas. We'll bring back a large format map and do a workshop with planning commission. And what we'd love to see as staff is a recommendation for a land use map change that we take forward to the council. And then we try that again, where we say, these are areas that we think would work for neighborhood commercial. And if the council adopts the general plan, then we have the support to rezone those pieces of property to a specific zone. Because the general plan doesn't entitle land. Like you could have, the whole general plan could say,
Yeah.
we want the entire thing to be an airport, like whatever you want, right, in the general plan. But the reality on the ground might be that it's a mix of housing and
The
shops.
vesting piece come into that discussion.
It's nuanced. It's hard for me to explain exactly what it is, but it would be basically that the general plan, instead of being a guiding document, would become more of an obligation, that it would require the developers to follow
The
it
city
very
council
closely.
Would
And-
have to, we would.
Because the council would adopt it.
Have to.
Yep.
adopt.
And it's a legislative decision. So general plan, zoning text are all, they are making the law, right? So the city council is the legislative body that does that. And our role is to make recommendations and then
Yep.
to administer that
Yeah.
law.
You're right. Yep. You reminded me.
That Wasatch Vision map
Yep.
that you had up,
Well,
I'm trying to find those yellow pockets on this.
Yeah, so I can,
and I'm having a little trouble.
yep,
So
I'll show you if I do them side by side. Maybe this will help. Come on now. And let's do the zoning map. So you have the zoning map in hand, right?
Yeah.
Now, second to public speaking, I think, is public use of a computer.
If you
Yeah.
do like a
Things
Windows
that make
and
me
the
nervous.
arrow, Scott,
What's that?
if you like hold your Windows key and the arrow, it'll like
Window, see, Ryan,
Windows
listen,
key and your arrow. Try it.
it's something really,
There you go. Or that might have been,
okay,
you got it.
and even if I had glasses, like.
all right. This is not perfectly one for one, but if you want to orient yourself to the Wasatch Choice map here, let me bring this one.
I thought it was Wasatch Regional Council.
It is. So Wasatch Front Regional Council is the entity. And the map is the Wasatch Choice Vision map.
Okay.
So
Okay.
That's the one they had those.
can I lock? There we go. Okay.
Those commercials.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know why we don't restart.
Thank you.
I already did this.
Okay.
I think that's where we're at.
So if you want to orient yourself to the map,
Okay.
here is, right, this section where it says CCDT, that's commercial downtown, Washington Boulevard and 2600 North
Right.
is right here.
Okay.
So this is 2600 North, Washington Boulevard and 2600. This green line is 2550. That's identified as a bike route. And then you have Pleasant View Drive, Lomond View, Alberta, and that's Pleasant View Drive, Lomond View, Alberta. So the areas, this one here would be on future Monroe, right there. And the yellow is in the unincorporated Weber County
Okay.
properties that is the
Perfect.
historic Barker Farm,
So
essentially.
somewhere in there.
Yep. And then if you bring this over slightly, this area that's identified as Civic Zone and
Yeah.
R1 12.5, those are the properties owned by the city. And that's
Kinda just
this
put a
right
box.
Yeah,
there.
right there.
And just north of there, like on the east side of Mountain Road,
Mhm.
do we own that property?
We don't. That's there. It's some and some that's unincorporated county and city, but it's owned by another landowner.
But it's not developed currently.
No. And then the last piece of recommended commercial is sitting right at the end of Mountain Road and Lakeview or 400. That would be right approximately here, right below Long Bench. And that's this guy, right? That's that one.
And Commissioner Nancaro, I would say, so I drew those on this Wasatch Choice map. WFRC had asked cities to propose some of these areas.
Mhm.
So even though it's on the vision, from what I understand, these get updated every
4
6
years.
years, 4 years. So it was an attempt by me to, because there had been discussions and encouragement of we'd like to see these. And part of that was, hey, these are, some of them are undeveloped areas, some are city owned. And in my mind, I was like, oh, so there's a potential that these would be a good area for a development to come in. And we encourage those neighborhood
Mhm.
commercial zones. Because then when the one on Mountain Road and 2750 where the trailhead is, it's city, there are some homes there, but there's a lot of undeveloped area as well. So if we encouraged a neighborhood commercial with some, even with some residential unit, like just have a really good mix. And that's where they're fairly large as well.
And it's not too far from where it intersects with 3100 and the divide road.
And then they're on pretty major corridors.
Right.
Mhm.
exactly.
Our
Which are gonna
2600,
become even more
Yeah.
major corridors.
yes.
Yeah. It's good.
Well,
This,
that's good
this
though.
one
I'm
down
seeing-
below, this one down below the red,
That one.
yeah.
That's
what-
in Ogden.
Okay. Interesting.
But the way to think about Wasatch Choice vision land use map is that it's like the least obligatory guiding
Right.
light, right? Like it's very aspirational. It's out to 2050.
Yeah,
It asks cities for just like throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
really.
The thing that WFRC does and their charge and required reason they exist is to help local communities spend federal transportation dollars on projects that help with air quality conformity. Like that's the reason they exist. So when you think of the Front Runner train,
Yeah.
WFRC helped allocate funds that paid for Front Runner. Or if you think about building sections of Washington Boulevard, or maybe Monroe and maybe Mountain Road, they could help fund that. But it's typically multi-city or even multi-county level decisions. And their entire thing is we want to invest these billions of dollars of transportation infrastructure where the land uses support them. So if you can better align like this is an intensive land use. This is a center that has people and commerce and it needs this major roadway investment. They're more likely to support investing in the roadway as opposed to we want a really expensive transportation alternative that only provides, 50 residential homes worth of benefit, right? So they're looking at the cost benefit ratio of,
So they trust, they're relying on us, to make an assessment.
Mhm.
And it looks like our assessment was not too bad to me.
You know,
Being on Monroe Boulevard,
area that I think is interesting is, all this development up the hill. I don't know what this road is, but it starts as an S at the top and it comes straight down.
it's Nebo or
Towards Bates
Eh,
Elementary.
It becomes
What
Monroe.
street is that? Oh,
Jackson.
that's
It's Jackson. So that's Jackson.
like Monroe, and there's like some kind of like agricultural property there.
Which one?
The Brown.
Yeah, on the Brown, like
Oh, when I-
across the street from Bates Elementary.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That area, because there's a lot of traffic, high school kids, everything on 3100. But a lot of these houses come straight down that road.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of the travelers come straight down that road and then go from there someplace. So, we've got these little things all over, but I don't, where I think that's a good area.
oh yeah, I mean, you got a high school with kids there too.
Well, it's actually an elementary school,
Elementary.
but on
But-
3100, all the high school kids
Kids.
drive right by
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
right? But everybody else coming down that mountain, a lot of them funnel through that
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
And it comes to like a T right there, but I guess that's gonna be
But I think
eventually go right through there. I think that particular corner, that area, because it's agricultural now, there's a
Yeah.
lot of land there and it's gonna
Yeah.
Monroe's gonna come through there, but it's kind of like the middle of the city. Does that make sense? Like right there.
Mhm.
Mhm. I don't know. I just think that's,
Yeah, right.
and it would impact not a lot of people.
There's
you know?
on the Weber choice map, there's that little yellow
Where
commercial piece.
where are you
Is
talking?
is that
Where?
Monroe or not?
Here,
That one?
So the one that's up higher here.
this one.
Oh.
The far north.
No,
Is that-
that's-
she's talking.
That's
That's
exit
Washington
Washington
Boulevard.
Boulevard. So it would, this would
And this is Mountain Road.
be like just above where the G.
You're
is.
saying it'd be right there.
And that's 3100, so it goes through the pass.
Yep.
But everybody up that mountain funnels down through there and it's gonna become Monroe Boulevard. But right now, it's just a big piece of agricultural land. It's got a little water.
I like that. I think that's a good point you're making.
But it's,
No, I like.
is it on there?
Well, this is Bates Elementary, so.
Right, it would be like directly across the street from that.
Yeah.
But it's everybody going through 3100.
Yeah, because it makes sense. The roadways. I mean, the roadways
Oh,
dictate that.
well,
the
we
roadway-
know the property.
I think you're exactly right.
And I didn't realize that would be.
And it's funny that
one of
it
the-
aligns with the
right?
plan back in the
I
sixties.
think
Yeah,
that's a great spot.
I do too.
yep. We agree.
Capture that.
But I mean, how many people does it really impact? There's not a lot of areas along that aren't already full of houses, right?
Well, but we could vest it.
We could.
We don't, we would just change the zone. You really like vesting, don't
No,
you?
I just think, as we look at like what we've kind of drawn around in the red from the other choice, it's like there's a big missing gap there.
I agree.
I don't know. That
That's
just
a
makes
good
sense.
one.
Yeah, I think it's a-
In full
You guys put-
disclosure,
You own it.
I own it. I live. So just, I mean, you're right. There's not a lot of houses there, but I just want to make it very clear, like, I'm not encouraging you in any way, shape or form. I'm just,
You can blame it on me.
He's disclosing his conflict of interest.
The thing is that just makes, there's a big missing place there and there's not,
Agreed to.
I don't know, I just don't think along that corridor, which will be very busy in about 20 years. I
I like that.
Well, I think you're right. 3100. I don't know what it was. I don't think it's a major corridor, but I mean, you're exactly right. It has a lot of traffic and looking at that
Yeah.
for neighborhood commercial or even
You have
Even for
VTM
the-
line there too, don't you?
the medium to higher density, like
Mhm.
Oh,
What's a,
you know, UTA does have a bus lane, but I heard maybe you told me they were gonna stop
They're
it or something.
switching
So
to
they've
the
talked about
meter.
switching to an on-demand service,
on-demand.
but that's been delayed. So
Okay.
they're still gonna run the 612.
I think it's due to lack of ridership, but maybe if, as the city gets busier, they reestablish it or something, you know?
I think you got a good spot.
I don't know. It just seemed like that's
I'm agree.
there's not a lot of areas along there that still has land available to do.
Well,
stuff.
and I don't want to belabor you all and leave our members of the public here all night talking about this stuff, because I love it. I can
We
sit
could
and
talk
do this.
all
I
day.
could do it all day. But I do think it would be, we'll roll out some big maps. We'll plan a planning commission meeting that is built around doing this workshop level work. But I'm very interested in the comments you've made tonight and also anything that you want to draw on the maps and leave with us. But I'd love to entertain any kind of final questions, and then we've more than exceeded our 1 hour training.
My question is just related to this overlay. Do we have any like cities in Utah that have adopted it and any success or horror stories coming from them? And one of the questions I really want to know is just like what the uptake is of how many people actually took them up on the overlay zone. Do we know anything about that, or is it pretty new still for everybody?
I can find out the second answer. The first one is that there were several cities.
Okay, so
There were a bunch that just adopted the overlay zone, mostly because they already had similar enough zones that it wasn't this massive change for them. They provided it.
Okay,
I think the uptake has been pretty limited.
Okay,
In a
that's
lot
what
of
I was curious
communities, it
about.
was a way to get through the moderate income housing, provide a tool for the free market to do.
Yeah.
But I don't think that a lot of developers are doing it. And it's just hard when, when raw ground in North Ogden is $200,000 an acre, 300,
250.
you know, $300,000 an acre, you're looking at several $1,000,000 to purchase these pieces of ground in the city and then to
and
develop.
to try to keep it affordable,
Yeah.
et cetera. Well, and I think that that's a key piece here, just when we're weighing risk benefit is just the likelihood that this spreads rapidly is very small, it sounds like.
Not it.
So it's just something to think about. Yeah. Okay.
But it would go a long way towards meeting the goals that we have.
It would provide a tool for sure.
And protect $1 million,
Maybe.
right?
And protect what? Oh, yes, it would protect our BNC road funds, our state funds that
have
come
them.
in. And it would save us from spending that $90,000+ on paying a fee for being delinquent in the plan. Yep.
So do you want these back?
Yes.
Just
I
write your
sent you
name on
guys
it,
a-
right?
I sent you a picture.
Send me a picture. You can just take a picture with your phone and email it to us. That works just fine. Or you can draw all over it. And if you want a really big one to print and write on your house, I'll print you a giant one if you want to.
You tease, but that's pretty exciting.
You want that one? You can take that one home.
Maybe actually.
Okay.
That's kind of fun.
Good training, by the way.
That was actually great training.
Put it in my office and people will be like, what is that?
Well, thank you. I know that I talked at you a lot tonight, and I promise next year we'll get trainings from people who are not me, and we'll bring people in to do these trainings.
You did
Um,
good, Scott.
But the recent meetings that we've had are right in this vein.
Yeah.
And this is the type of planning that I know the city council and the mayor is interested in. And also it aligns directly with the pillar that we've been identified in the city for these strategies. So it was kind of the perfect storm of timing to bring these things forward. And I think it's a great time to keep these ideas rolling.
It would be nice too to add a third element of potential park designated overlay.
Yep. Yeah, we need to update that in the land use map as well.
Another session. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, are there any public comments about this item or any other item tonight?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
At the-
please.
I apologize. I'm very unprepared and I'm sorry that I wasn't aware of this meeting. I'm likely not alone in that. I must not be watching the city website well enough. Was it this meeting posted there?
On Facebook, yep.
Okay. So,
But give us your name, please.
John Telly. I live on 924 East, 1900 North. So I am just south of the Atkinson Pauling proposal. And I only have some general comments because this is a very complicated process and I've not been involved in it. So I apologize. But first of all, I saw the city council pyramid, which had public safety at the top and economic planning at the bottom. And I want to, with all due respect to Scott, because he's an economic planner, he took that pyramid and inverted it in 2 seconds and put public safety at the bottom and economic planning at the top. Really, before the city council has the base of the pyramid is public safety.
I didn't understand it that way, but
Well, they had number one priority was public
he was
safety.
working on a
It is.
committee.
That was more facetious to say, this is my thing that I work on. So
Yeah.
the city council's identified public safety first, community unity, employees, and then economic planning. So I will stand by what the council has recommended, and I don't reorder their priorities.
Yeah.
Just the one that I'm working on.
So,
is-
but isn't it saying the same thing? If public safety is number one, that means the base of the pyramid is public safety. Isn't that saying the same thing?
No.
Okay.
Can you finish your comments?
Okay, so I'd say let's keep public safety at the base. Now, I'm going to speak to the Atkinson Pauling proposal. Herein, again, I don't quite understand what vesting is, but I think that is a great idea because a lot of these parcels have very unique character. One of the problems with the Atkinson Pauling parcel is there's only 2 access points. And there are 2 access points into neighborhoods with people and children playing in the streets. And they have to wind their way to relatively small 1,700 on the south and not so big 2,100 on the north. No major thoroughfares to get what was proposed 68 units out into Washington Boulevard. I have no problem with meeting the governor's demands and get some higher density housing, but it's got to have quick access to Washington Boulevard or some major thoroughfare. And this plot is not appropriate for that. Secondly, in general, and I hope I'm not misquoting, but Mayor Berube sent us a letter explaining what the cities are under some pressure from the governor. And in that letter, he included a quote, and I wish I had it with me. I think it said this, but don't quote me on it because it's kind of outlandish. But the quote was, landowners should get to develop whatever they want, wherever they want. And I need to try and understand what the governor's saying by this, but this country was built on checks and balances, and he's going to turn over the development of the Utah valleys to the developers with no checks. We're all human. We need checks. That's why we're here balancing one another. So that has to be pushed back on until we understand better what he's saying. I realize there's pressures they can put on the cities with these financial pressures, but we also want to protect our neighborhoods for safety and for homogeneity. And this particular parcel of Atkinson Pauling is, again, it's surrounded by RE20, R110, Quail Ponds on the west, and then R18 on the south. Now, Quail Ponds, I looked on usually a PUD like that, a special designation, they provide some benefit to the community for the higher density. I looked on the city website and I didn't see any benefit. It was just a normal housing development. And one person in a planning committee meeting here, I don't know if you remember, he said that there was some promises of trails, some trail system that never happened. So
Sally, I'm just interrupt you to save you a little bit of time,
Yeah.
is that we've already made a recommendation on that property to
Yeah.
the city council.
Yeah.
But they are actually, is it December 9th they're going to have, they're not having it?
No.
Oh,
It'll
do
be
you
in
know?
January.
In January, the city council will now review this, and I think they would love to hear your input on that.
Okay.
We have already made the decision and made a recommendation to the city council. And I believe our recommendation was not to move forward with that project as developed.
Yep.
And, but we don't have the final decision on that. So as much as I love your comments, You're gonna have to say them all over again to the city council.
Okay.
If-
So I
So
need
I'm
to,
gonna just
all right,
give
fine.
you some time, maybe.
Okay, then I'll quit.
Okay,
And
but I didn't mean to cut you off in
how
a
do I
rude
find
way.
out about this city council meeting? When it's gonna happen? And what was this county protest that I heard about?
Well, this isn't really the time for
Yeah.
questions, so maybe you can talk offline for that, yeah? Okay, I don't mean to cut you off in a rude way, but.
No, it's
okay.
fine. I
Just trying
understand your
to
point.
follow the rules here, yeah.
And the city website and the Facebook page for the city will both have any public notices posted before those meetings.
So look for the agenda postings for the city council or the planning commission meeting. And it should be in January, it sounds like,
On the 13th.
on the 13th of January.
Even though there's some county protest, that's not gonna stand in the way of that.
Oh, no.
Or fail.
Any other public comments on this item or any other? Anybody online, Sean?
No raised hands.
Okay. So any other remarks from the planning commissioners?
Nope.
Mr. Hess?
We do have seats open on the planning commission and the applications for those are out on our website right now. So I'd encourage anybody who's interested in the planning commission application, please put those in by December 31st this month. And then those appointments will be made 1st of next year.
Brian? Anything?
Just echo. Apply.
Mr. Call.
Just a reminder, if you saw in your emails, the city holiday party is next week.
So you already told me you're not going. Are you going?
Why do I not get the emails?
The reason I asked this question is the very first time I went, there was a nice looking lady sitting all by herself. So we joined her. Didn't know it was the mayor's wife and we were at the mayor's table. And I would like not to repeat this experience. They're lovely, but it was a lot of like undue pressure that I didn't expect. So if one of you are going,
Do I have an email address at the city?
Yes.
you do.
I
We'll
do.
get you set up after the meeting.
You can't just use one email that I use.
So what you can do is you can go in and forward it to your other email. But the hard thing is because it's city business, you need to respond through the city email back if there's an official communication.
I'll show you the email and then I can forward it to you too if you don't see it. So for the dinner. So anyway, we'll talk about it. But yes, it was last call, I believe she said today, but
Yeah.
I'm
So
like, I just need a table buddy. So yeah, anyway.
I'm sure that there will be planners and folks there.
Yeah, and then I eventually realized that we'd gotten there earlier, and so everyone else sat somewhere far in the back. We thought we were in the back, but you guys used a different podium. I thought you used the stage. Anyway, it was a very ironic,
Yeah,
funny
I
situation.
think one year that I was on, I didn't know we had assigned seats. I was like, I don't know. I
There's
just-
not
I
assigned
just sat at a
seats,
table with people.
but they
Yeah.
use a tiny
Had
podium.
fun. I met nice.
We assumed that the room was inverted, and so we sit in the back by this nice lady, and then yeah, it was very awkward. But it's all good. They were very lovely, very
Well,
lovely.
he was probably grateful somebody sat next to him. So.
Like, oh, you guys are the newbies.
I've made some new friends.
It was like him and then the police hero of North Ogden. So it was we felt very embarrassed. So anyway.
Well, yeah, if nobody has anything else, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.